The
Right.
relationship is built over the preparation of a meal, man. Is the way food impacts culture for us, it's different, man.
And I'd certainly
Yeah.
say there's pieces of that in how my portfolio has shifted. But right now, my bread and butter is training and development, growth and development. So whether it's keynote, workshop, seminar style, really developing people, right? And trying to help develop people.
I'm trying to find the intersections of where food and culture come together that have an impact on like the genius that exists in our community. Salutations, good people. My name is Ernest Comer III. Welcome to the Pancakes From Scratch Podcast. I'm be here checking in with good people, doing good things today. I got with me my good friend, Dr. Abdul Omari. It's good to see you, brother. How you living?
I'm good, bro. I'm good. Glad to be with you. You good?
I love it, man. So I don't want to get too deep into your resume. I don't want to stress people out. You know what I mean? I know you've been doing your thing for a little while, man. But what I do want to check in with you, man, is what's giving you energy this week?
This week was giving me energy. I'm feeling refreshed. Just got back from 9 days in Colombia. So back now. And, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, dang, I got a lot to do now that I'm back. But also I was just spending 9 days in Colombia. You know what I mean? So like put it in perspective, like, yeah, you got a lot to do, but bro, like don't forget what you was just doing, right? So, you know, just grateful for the opportunity to do that. And, you know, got some work coming up tomorrow, some training and development, some meetings with, you know, clients and folks that it's love, man, and trying to, you know, push ahead. So feeling good.
That's what's up, man. That's what's up. I'm trying to get on them 9 days in Colombia levels. That's okay. I got you.
Let's do it, bro. Like, man, the hardest part is finding the time to get off, because once you get there, it's mad cheap. And, you know, so like you can spend little dollars on amazing food, seafood, you know what I mean? I was eating lobster and octopus like every day, bro.
Crazy.
for
Okay.
for like a quarter of the cost.
You was doing okay, you did real Colombia. You wasn't in, did you do like the whole all expenses, you know what I'm saying, included retreat resort situation?
Nah. We got an Airbnb right on the beach, right in Cartagena. And you know, go to the beach, catch a quick little Uber or taxi right to the city. And we like to kick it with the locals. Me and my homeboy Dominic, we travel all the time, and you know, we like to kick it with the locals when we can.
Okay, y'all do it for real. Y'all do it for real. People be out there for play. You do it for real. It's different. It's a very different experience. That's what's up, man. So cool. Well, I'm glad you got a chance to get away, get some time to breathe and just be. A lot of us don't get a chance to do that or don't prioritize finding opportunities to do that. So
yes, indeed.
That's love, man. When I told you I didn't have a whole lot of questions that I like prepped for our conversation, but I got a couple things I want to make sure we dive into. And one of those things I really want to root our conversation in is just when you reflect on some of your biggest challenges, is there one that stands out as something that helped shape who you've become, either personally or professionally? Like getting through this challenge really made me who I am today.
Only one. So I think there's been a theme sort of throughout my formative years that I continue to keep with me today. And so it's not like a single moment or a single thing that happened, but it's more of something that is important to me and my upbringing that continues to rise to who I am and how I view the world and in the ways in which I try to connect with folks and things like that. And that's really rooted in my multiple identifiers: visible, non-visible, physical, and non-physical, right? And so I like to tell people about growing up confused. And the way that I sort of root this conversation is in, and I don't even know if like a lot of people who know me don't know this, and they certainly didn't know when I was coming up. My name is Abdul, which folks will sort of think like, okay, so, what's going on with the name, but also not necessarily sure, like, does that mean that you have immigrant status or that you're Muslim or whatever? And the reality of it is while I was born in Minneapolis and grew up moving through the world as a Black person and identifying as a Black African-American person, I also have immigrant parents, right? One from the Middle East and one from East Africa. And so I'm Black, I'm African-American, and I'm the product of immigrant parents, right? Kenya and Jordan. And then my name automatically gets affiliated with Islam. But the funny thing is that my mom is actually Christian from the Middle East who speaks Arabic. So Abdul is also a very common name, in her side, right? And then my pop is from Kenya, which is predominantly Christian, and he's Muslim, right? And so, so I think, or I would say that sort of answer your question, right? Like there's been an ongoing sort of discovery and rediscovery of who I am, my identifiers and how they show up in the world and what that means to form, the complex, unique individual that I am and that we all are, right? And sort of what that means to navigate the world and how I approach connecting with people and thinking about how we might share similarities and then, identifying and admiring the differences and the beauty in that difference too is something that continues to resonate. And again, I don't know if I think in moments I considered it a challenge, but also I think it's probably a privilege, right? To be able to navigate those.
I love it, man. It's heavy. So I'm actually super fascinated by confusion, right? The idea of being in this, because the thing about confusion is that, bro, it can stall you out. Like when you enter that state of being and just the not knowing or the conflicting ideas, that can have you just in a state of pause and not being able to move. Like, is there something that drove you through that so that you could see a way through, or something that pushed you forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think as I was coming up, we frequently had sort of the things that we did in the house, right? And then there was stuff that like we did when we were outside of the house, usually like my siblings and me, right? And you oftentimes hear from, immigrants, right? Or second generation immigrants, they talk about like, I have two lives, right? One is in the house and one is outside of the house. And I don't think it's terribly unique even for people who are born here or who don't have like, recent immigrant lineage. But I think there's a few things that were big for me. So, I mean, my parents are very grounded and rooted and confident in who they are and their backgrounds and identities and what have you. So there was no doubt that we knew we were the product of immigrant parents. We knew that we were Kenyan or are Kenyan. We knew that we're Jordanian, right? All those things. And then I had the luxury of being one of the youngest, right? In my sibling tree. And so my siblings are, we were equipped, right, to be confident and move through the world in these ways. And so I would say I just point to family and say, the ways in which they guided me in as one of the younger ones. That's, I think, what sort of helped me navigate through that. Granted, I still had to figure it out for myself too, right? But there was a lot of guidance in sort of leadership that I was able to follow.
That's what's up, man. That's what's up. I love it. I love it, man. Speaking of leadership, I know that you've been leading this program, right, with the Minnesota private colleges. And that was one of the things that I've been sort of watching from a distance and engaged lightly on a couple of different things. Had an opportunity to connect with the fellas that you put together once or twice, and it's like super powerful work that you're doing there. I'm curious about what's driven you to create something like that, and like how you prepared yourself, or what about life prepared you for creating a type of thing that exists through that effort.
Yeah. So I'm fortunate to be one of a few folks who helped to run the program, and it's funded through the Minnesota Private College Fund. The primary funder is the Phillips Family Foundation. So Congressperson Dean Phillips, it's his family foundation. And I got tapped through someone named Carolyn Jones, who used to work at the Private College Fund. You know Carolyn, right? And I knew her through my time as a Justice Page scholar. She used to work there. And so I've known her since I was like 18, right? And
Crazy.
yeah, and then you fast forward all these years later, when I was towards the end of my doctorate, this idea came up of starting what at the time was envisioned as a scholarship program, specifically targeting Black men who attend the private colleges. And so she hit me up and essentially was like, hey, we want to move forward on this. I have a bunch of stuff on paper. And she had done a bunch of research and legwork, and shout out to her, because I mean, that's me and Brittany are having her and her husband over for dinner tomorrow. Like that's,
I love it, man. Tell her I said, hey, man.
I will. And so she essentially hit me up and said, here's what I have. Do you think that you can help me breathe life into this and take it from something that's on paper into a functioning program? And to answer the question of sort of, so that's sort of the impetus, right? And how it started. And I can give some more background. I don't know how much you want, but the Phillips Family Foundation has had a scholarship that's been around for probably 20 plus years. But what they noticed was that Black men were not applying for the scholarship. And it was predominantly women, actually, and quite frankly, Hmong women who were mostly in the program. And so they were trying to decide, do we sort of reinvent that program to try and grab Black men, or do we start something new? And then Patrick Troska, who at the time was the executive director of the Phillips Family Foundation, said, let's go listen to the community and see what they think. And then came back and said, all right, we're going to start a program specifically targeting Black men. So then that's how they called Carolyn. Then Carolyn called me.
What's crazy is I was in one of those listening sessions.
Right. Full circle, right? Like this is like back in 2014, right? Which is just what I think about. And so this is what came out of it, right? And so mad love to Carolyn, mad love to Patrick for sort of being on the front end of it, if you will. So when Carolyn called me, timing was right. My research was focused in the perceptions of mentoring for African-American men. And it was African-American men who half of the study was focused on, if you think about like Middle Passage, right? Like slave descendants. And then the other half of the participants in the study were first, second, or third generation West African. And so I was doing this study to try and think about like what mentoring means to them, their experiences in mentoring, certainly impacted by my own mentoring and how I was interested in the topic. And Carolyn knew this. And so she called me and said, hey, I think you might be the right person to help get this going. And that from there, just kind of it went. Now I'll say this, right? There's a lot of influences, not only the piece that I was talking about earlier about my own identity. There's the mentors that poured into me throughout my time that certainly impacted my interest and my desire. Also the experience, my fraternity, right? Like being a member of a historically Black fraternity is huge. And so joining Phi Alpha and the impact that had on me and there's snippets, right? There's snippets in the program of, let's do certain things, right? Let's have study sessions. Let's talk about, your mental, physical, and soul, right? And well-being. Let's talk about obviously academics because it's, focused on college students and all these different things. And so we started with 3 students. We took in 3 students in 2015. And then 2 years after that, jumped to 15 students. And then since then, we've had a cycle of about anywhere from 15 to 30 each year. And so now what is this? 2022, we started in 2015. So we're in the 7th year. Currently, we have about 45 scholars that span about probably 10 of the private colleges in the state. And so, it's it's great.
Yeah, man. I love it. I love the way it's built. I love the way it's structured and the way that um, the fellas that you connect with are engaged with the experience, but I also love the intentionality of how you identify the institutions like the schools, and so that the partnership that exists there is as strong as it can be. I love the design, man. Y'all are doing something super powerful over there, for real.
Appreciate it.
Yes,
And
sir.
it is very intentional. Like, we target students who have between a 2.0 and a 2.9 GPA, very intentionally, right? We're trying to get the cap. And it's as they're going from sophomore to junior year, right? So, if you've got a 2.0, you've probably lost some scholarships, right? You're trying to figure out how you can get you're thinking about, oh, should I move back home? I got to take on more home responsibilities. And then, we come in and say, hey, here's some finances, but also, like, we actually don't even call it a scholarship program anymore. We call it the Black Men's Success Initiative. And we're thinking about, right, like we're putting them in suits. We're taking them on the Big 12 conference. I don't know if you ever went when you were in. Yep, we take them there.
I never went, but I heard about it.
Yeah, we take them to the conference. We find and place interns, in internships and pay for their internships, right? So it's really trying to be intentional about, because quite frankly, like, a lot of these internships and companies are not going to look at a 2.5 student, right? They're just not, and for all the reasons that we know are messed up, right? And so we're trying to garner that relationship and that partnership to make sure that they can be set up for whatever they define as success.
Man, that's heavy, man.
Yeah.
So I know this is it's one of the things that you've done professionally. The question that I have is, what experience in your professional career or in your personal life is something that you're most grateful for?
So in my personal life, I would probably say, that's hard. All right, so I'm gonna give you two. The first one is growing up toggling the poverty line, which seems odd to be something that you're grateful for, right? But those of us who have grown up in that way, you recognize how that impacts can impact your life in a positive way. So being able to feel what that's like, and then sort of now being much more grateful for the things that I have, right? And understanding that the things that I don't have are not that important. And then so there's that, I would say, for sure. And I forgot my second one, so I'll just stop with that for now.
No, but it's very, very real. Like, navigating that experience, man, it changes you. It has an impact on how you see the world around you. It has an impact on how you see what you get access to, and like the things that are built around you. It creates a different type of not only appreciation for what you have, but also allows you to sort of knock some things off the pedestal when it comes to that hierarchy of needs. You know what I mean?
That's right.
That's heavy. Now, you also mentioned something about a fraternity. I think you said Phi Beta. What was it?
Yes, indeed. Yeah, man. 2006 came through, Alpha Phi Alpha, another great decision point in my life. And again, right, it's interesting, like, you come up with immigrant parents and you don't even know what a fraternity is, right? Like, I had no idea what a fraternity was. And then, you go through that experience, and it gives in so many different ways, right? And whether you're giving back directly to the fraternity or in other ways, it certainly puts, at least in my mind, it put a level of desire to serve that maybe I would have had it without, right? But it's hard to say for sure. But one of the funny things is, so I thought that, so at the time, my parents moved to Kenya when I was a freshman in college. And so it was very much me and my siblings, right? And, I'm going through this process, and the whole time I'm wondering myself, what are my parents going to think, right? They're going to think I done joined a cult, and, they don't understand it, and all these things, right? And so finally, I tell my pops that I joined the fraternity. And my pops, when I was growing up, was a DJ and owned a very small electronics store where he would like rent speakers and mixing boards and karaoke's and stuff like that, right over south by Matt's Bar and Grill. And so I tell him that I joined this fraternity, and he's like, oh, which one are y'all? Are y'all the purple and gold, the black and gold, right? And he starts naming all the colors, and I'm like, wait a minute. So he had rented equipment to all the fraternities at the U over the years. And he's like, yeah, I love all those guys. They're great. They come by, they're respectful, they get equipment. And I'm like, wow, this is wild.
That's love, man. That's love.
Yeah,
no,
man.
Listen, like you said, man, full circle, because it like the fraternity and sorority thing is like, if you're not in it, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you don't have a legacy situation where you have uncles and aunties and cousins that's participating in fraternity, sorority life, it could be real odd, right? Like your experience, you never know what that experience is going to be for somebody who's just not participating or not engaged. So it's great to see that the impact is felt not just for the membership, but also for the community that is intended to be served in the first place. So that's love.
Yeah,
real
so it was pretty wild. Yeah, man.
Absolutely.
And I think that these days, you know, it obviously, for those who don't know, we are not in the same fraternity, but these days, once college is over and you realize like we all just out here trying to make it, you know what I mean? It don't matter at that point. It's like, hey, what you need, I got you. How can I help? What you got going on? Where can I plug in? You know, all that. So it's always love.
It's super real, man. I remember when I was at the U as a student, I was really just looking for a way to stay engaged with the work of being somebody who pours into a community, right? And so for me, like the beginning and end of it all was service. And so when I came across Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, it was the way the organization as a whole leaned into the idea of service and community. And that just, it struck me, right? And then the people that I connected with through the organization, I leaned into it. But after I became a member, after some time, and especially as I came into like the graduate experience, I started to recognize that I didn't understand how to encourage people to engage and participate in that, in the work that was happening. Like, it's like, I'm not here to sell my fraternity, and that's it. But the conversations that I've had with folks that are members that are Greek, right? Folks that the conversations that I've had have been like, well, the problem for the organizations is that its membership doesn't recognize the value and importance of speaking to what our organizations are all about and how we can, working together, have an impact on the communities that we exist in. We got to continue to be open about it, have conversations about it, so people are aware, you know, not just aware of the colors, right, but aware of the value that, you know what I'm saying, our organizations bring to community. So it's all love.
Yeah.
It's all
I mean, and it's interesting, right? Like when you take like a historical standpoint of why Black fraternities and sororities were originally started, right? It was like survival, right? Like we were on PWIs, like trying to figure out how to make it, right? And then there were these, you know, scholarship, and for us, manly deeds, love for all mankind, right? And embedded in all that is service and stuff, right? And so like I think in many ways, some of those remnants of we got to survive, right? Like, and then I certainly think that there was a shift into sort of like the Black bourgeois, right? Like we're sort of, you know, right? And I think that there's certainly been an awareness over, I don't know, I say maybe the last 10 plus years where folks are trying to, yes, it's an honor and a privilege, and also we're still just people trying to impact the world in a positive way, right? And so I think finding that balance is always something that will, at least in the short term, I think something that we'll be continuing to try and navigate.
No, that's a fact, man. And really it has a lot to do with why I started this podcast in the first place, is because we have a ton of talent and a ton of potential in our community, and the things that we create, the genius that we have, that we bring to market, oftentimes comes from the challenges that we've had to work through. And, you know, as we grow and gain an appreciation for the experiences that we've had, like you said, toggling the poverty line and having appreciation for that, it prepares you for the opportunity to create something that's going to have an impact on the world around you, right? Yep. Similarly, the ingredients that go into making pancakes from scratch individually don't have an appealing flavor to them, but it all comes together to make something powerful, man. And so all right, I'm gonna tell you a secret, man. Don't tell nobody else. Growing up as a kid, my favorite food was French toast. Moms would hook up the French toast every once in a while, okay? And every once in a while she would come through, but like every day I was asking, like, Mom, what's up with the French toast? Let's get it going. And she would be like, oh, it's so complicated. I got to get all the ingredients. I don't have time. She finally told me how to make French toast. I said, you don't give me this bread and eggs.
That's a fact. It ain't that hard.
It ain't, man. But then the grandkids came along, right? So me and my wife, two beautiful children, all of a sudden, they over at Nana house making pancakes from scratch. She got all the time in the world.
Yep.
What is this? What is this? I said, you know what? You done traumatized me. You know what I'm naming my podcast? It'll be Pancakes from Scratch, in case you was wondering.
Pancakes from Scratch. I love it. But grandkids came around and Moms is over here just mixing up all the batter.
Like, what's going on? Like, yo, where did all the energy come from? What's really good, man? But what's funny is, like, those experiences, especially as children, those experiences stick with us, man. So I'm curious for you, did you have a favorite food growing up as a kid?
It was probably, and I say probably because we ate a lot of different foods that were influenced from like my parents and stuff. But I'd probably say it was Mom's lasagna growing up. She used to make some fire. She still makes fire lasagna. But lasagna was probably the go-to. But if you're talking about like Kenyan dishes, it's this bread it's like a bread. It's flat. It looks like a tortilla, but it's called chapati. Okay. And talk about making something from scratch, right? Like you start with dough and water, and like, I mean, it's like hours long process. The whole house, you can smell it throughout the whole house, and you know, and then you make some sort of stew, right, to go with it. Maybe it's like cabbage or beans or, you know, some beef or something like that if you can afford it. And so anytime we could get that, it was fire. And if it was breakfast, I was the same way. It was French toast for me, bro.
Hood classics, I love it. Yeah. But that's what's up, man. It's funny to me how those experiences, and not just eating the food, but the experience of preparing the food, the smells stick with you, the relationship is built over the preparation of a meal, man. It's the way food impacts culture for us. It's different, man.
Yeah, man.
It's really
it's real. Yeah.
So I'm trying to find the intersections of where like food and culture come together that have an impact on like the genius that exists in our community, because it's something there.
Oh, for sure. I mean, if you think about it, right? Like if you think about even the name of the podcast, right? Pancakes from Scratch, like the ways so I think about, I don't cook all the time, but I probably cook maybe once a week. and I'll make enough for a couple of days, right?
That's it.
But every time I start, it's got this base of things, right? This like foundation, but I have no idea what it's going to taste like in the end, right? And so we're talking about onions, garlic, tomatoes, that are always going to be like sort of sauteed at the beginning of whatever it is that I'm making, right? Maybe sometimes I'm cilantro in the fridge, so I'm going to add some cilantro in there, right? Sometimes, you're going to add something that you might not add on a normal basis, but there's the base of it. And then at the end, you taste it and you're kind of like, I hope this is good. But 50% of the time, it's going to be bomb before you even taste it, right? Now, there's that other 50% of the time where it's like, ooh, we're going to see, right? Should I put the salt on the table or not, right? But that's part of, I think, what you're talking about, right? That creativity and the genius that comes out of it, right? Because if you think about experiments, discoveries, all this stuff, right? Like, it's a whole lot of trial and error. And then eventually it comes out right. And so I definitely think that there's a piece of that. And, again, like I mentioned, sometimes I got some cilantro in the fridge. Well, other times it's like, just what do I have in the fridge? Right. And what can we create out of what we have in the fridge, right? And my mom's is great at that. Sometimes I used to be like, Mom, what are you making for dinner? She's like, I don't know yet. And she's midway through cooking. Like,
goes
saying?
like that for sure.
So,
but
yeah, man.
So the question I have with that is, like, how do you trust yourself through that creative process when it's building something for the people you want to serve, right? And I know the work that you do has a serious impact on folks' professional lives and careers and et cetera. Like, how do you trust yourself in that process as you bringing it together?
Yeah. Whew. So it's interesting that you use the terminology trust, because I think I always trust myself, but I also doubt myself, right? And you can trust yourself, and I think you can doubt yourself, and those two things can coexist, right? And I'd say there's a few things. One of the reasons why I can trust myself is because I've had moments where I'm like, oh no, this ain't it. Right? Like, you ain't doing the most that you could do, or you ain't doing the best that you could do. You're not serving us in the most appropriate way. And you can do more, you can push more, you can navigate it in different ways. So I'd say that there's a failure associated with that trust, right? I know I have done things that couldn't have been that could have been better, or that I have even gone down the wrong path and said, like, that was a failure. Others might not view it as a failure, but that's okay. So that's one part of it. The second part of it is I've been very, very fortunate my whole life, starting with family, which continues today. I mean, my family is absolutely dope. No other family like it. And just, I could go on and on about the family. And I'm talking just blood right now, right? Gotcha. And then by extension, I've been fortunate and blessed with really, really good friends, right? Smart people, folks that come from different walks of life, that challenge me in different ways, that we challenge each other. And there's a lot of times where I will just call somebody and be like, yo, I just got to run this by you. Am I tripping? Am I not pushing hard enough? Am I going too sort of Minnesotan, right? Like, am I being too Minnesota nice on this one? And they tell me, right? They tell me, yes, you are. You need to go harder. Or no, I think you're finding the right, navigation of how you do this. And I think that's another way in which I've found to be able to trust myself. And I think as time has gone on, I started the business almost 10 years ago when I was still in school, and have been doing it full time for the past 7 years. And my consulting business, so outside of the scholarship program, that's like a third of my time in book of business, probably a little less than third. But and so what I've also been able to do over those 7 years is get to the point where, at least I don't think I'm making this up, but I think I've gotten to the point where I have enough folks who know the sort of know the intent and know where I'm coming from and how I'm trying to push people and systems and things like that, where there's also been some grace offered when I haven't shown up in the way that I know I should have. So all those things I would say, sort of off the top of my head, have led to me being able to trust myself more, even though I doubt myself, right? Like once a year, probably I'm like, I might need to change careers. Like I ain't doing enough, or I'm not going hard enough, or what have you. But yeah.
No, that's real, man. I definitely appreciate the idea of leaning into the people around you to help move things forward. I think Stacey Abrams was the first person I heard say, we playing spades, not chess.
Yeah.
Right. And that really hit me because of like the dynamic of the game and the way it's attached to culture. And I think that speaks to what you're talking about of like being willing to open and connect with the people who are invested in your success.
Yeah.
And lean into those relationships.
Yeah. So let me, I don't know if you've hit on this or plan to hit on it throughout, your podcast and stuff, but I mean, a few years ago, like you uprooted and you bounced and you've been doing some, right? You've been doing some different things and navigating different spaces. And so I guess, I mean, I'm curious to know the same question, like, what is it, what allows you to trust yourself as you navigate, move, again, like not only different geography, but also trying to figure out sort of exactly where your place is and what spaces you're gonna play in.
No, it's facts, man. I appreciate it. It's been a journey, brother. It's been a journey. I tell everybody like that move down here, it definitely was a challenge, not for the weak. To move across country in the middle of a pandemic. Our youngest, our daughter was just starting school. And so it was a real rough experience, man, but we recognized the importance of making it happen.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just, what I'm saying, oh, we want to move to Atlanta because that's where it's at. Had some family in this area. We knew we needed to get to a place with a different climate, get my family some more warmer weather for health reasons. And so the decision had to be made, and we went ahead and really leaned on faith in that decision-making process. And once we got here, it was just being in the experience, right? Mike Tyson said, everybody got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Yeah. Yep. Repeatedly, bro. Repeatedly. And so being here and just seeing what the reality of circumstance was, I invested in getting a therapist to make sure that I was keeping myself like in the right space mentally. And that was super helpful for that season. But also leaning into the relationship I had with my wife and just having conversations, making sure that we were lifting each other up. To your point, man, it's the people around you. And at that point, everybody's siloed, right? We are like the social distancing created a situation, like the physical distancing that we did created the social distancing. And so our family had to grow stronger. Like we didn't have a choice. And it was, me and my wife against the world, and we leaning up, we back to back leaning up against each other. And, trying to be an umbrella for the children so they don't feel so much at that experience, but at the same time, they feel it. So it's just having an appreciation for one another and like really having faith in the idea that we gonna push through because we don't have no other choice.
Yeah, that's real. Yeah, that's cool. I appreciate you sharing that. And we caught up. It was cool because we caught up. Was it earlier this year or like at the turn of last year probably? Just on some, what's up? Let's rap, right? And I didn't even know you had moved at the time. And because we were in a pandemic, right? Like you weren't seeing no, I mean, somebody could have up and moved across the world for all I knew, like, I didn't know. So yeah.
I had to do it, man. I had to do it. But so I want to know a little bit more about this business you started up, man. Tell us about MO and what you got going on.
Yeah, appreciate that. So I officially launched the business in 2013. I was still 2 years out of graduating from school. And essentially what happened, I'll go back to 2010. So I started my doctorate in 2010. And my plan when I started my doctorate was I was going, graduate, go be a faculty member at a Research One university, write books and do research and publish articles and teach. But if you think about it, right? So the pandemic, like officially, or sorry, not the pandemic, the recession officially, I think was announced like at the end of 2007, 2008 is really happening 9, 10, right? And so what was happening in higher education, which is similar with a lot of places, is there were all these freezes on faculty hiring, right? And so by about 2012, 2 years into my doctorate, after almost getting kicked out for, various not having my writing up to speed and things like that, I started to realize a few things. One was I didn't like doing research. 2 was I'm not a great writer and quite frankly, don't even enjoy writing. Or I should say, I'm not the type of writer that you typically find in academia. I should probably give myself a little more credit instead of just saying I'm not a great writer. Thirdly, what I started noticing 2 years in was there were all these people who were ahead of me in the same program and were graduating but couldn't find jobs because there were these faculty hiring freezes, right? And so then there's a backlog, right? And the competition just gets harder and harder. And so what they're doing is they're going and they're getting like 3, 4 adjunct teaching jobs where they get paid like $3,000 a semester or $5,000 a semester to try to make ends meet. And it's just not working, right? And they're way better academicians than I am, right? So I'm like, well, dang, what am I gonna do? So around that same time, I started teaching at the U. I got asked to teach a leadership course for undergraduate students at the U, and was kind of getting asked, like you'll remember, right? Like the Black Student Union hits you up and is like, hey, we got Unity dinner. Can you come give a keynote or whatever, right? So I started getting asked to do more stuff like that, and I'm teaching. And basically one day just said to myself, actually October 9th, 2013, I was like, I'm gonna start a business. Oh. And so I started the business and I was just going out trying to get speaking gigs and, do training and development and what have you. And then when 2015 was coming around, I knew I was gonna be graduating. I was like, let's just try it. Let's see what happens. Knowing that I might be looking for a job, but I was like, let's just try it and see what happens. And so the business, of course, they say, right, like businesses evolve with demand and with the market. And I'd certainly say there's pieces of that in how my portfolio has shifted. But right now, my bread and butter is training and development, growth and development. So whether it's keynote, workshop, seminar style, really developing people, right? And trying to help develop people. I have 8 regularly delivered sessions that I offer. Those have shifted over time. Some have been dropped, added some, what have you. Keynotes as well. And then another piece of the business that really picked up in 2019, which I'm sure you'll appreciate, is I started getting a little bit more comfortable and confident in sort of interviewing my potential clients rather than only being interviewed. And what I mean by that is when they're asking me to come in and do this, one training on, for their managers about followers, I started saying, well, what do you do when I'm not there? Right? What are you doing internally to develop your people while I'm not there? And for some, they were like, oh, we got boom, 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 boom. I'm like, all right, bet. Let me come in and run this. For others, they were like, we don't have nothing. And so I came to a point where I was like, look, I need you to do more. Whether that's with me or not, I don't really care, but I just need you to do more. And so that spun into more of sort of organizational development, advising, doing a lot of like qualitative data gathering, focus groups to sort of figure out what the holes are within organizations, making recommendations. Oftentimes those recommendations come with training and development. So then I'm also coming in to help with that and leaning a lot more into helping folks with their diversity, equity, inclusion, racial and social justice work too.
Crazy, man. And it's,
yeah, man.
like I said, it comes out of those challenges, right? Because if you were in a situation where you were graduating, you were getting your doctorate during a season where everybody was getting jobs, it was easy. Might not be in a situation where you felt the need to create this business.
That's right.
So,
it's very much Malcolm Gladwell outliers feel, right? Like how timing, matters and all that, right? And like, who knows if it wasn't during a recession or sort of on the back end of the recession, I have no idea what I'd be doing.
Heavy, man. That's it. Well, you're making some great things happen, bro. I appreciate everything that you are pouring into people, pouring into communities that you're serving, man. It is not unnoticed and it is not unappreciated. So keep doing big things, bro. Before we wrap up, man, any final thoughts, a last word, any mini pancakes you want to share?
Any mini pancakes? I would just say, I thought about this a lot when I was a board member at the U, when I was a regent, and sort of people would be like, well, what are people going to remember about you? What are they going to say? And at the end of the day, I think we should all strive to sort of get to the point where people can say, he may have made the wrong decision or a decision that I disagree with, but I know that he thought it was the best decision for our people at the time. Right? That's sort of the in my mind, the goal, right? Like, I know I've done some things that people would have done differently, or that in retrospect were probably not the right choice. But as long as people can walk away and say they believe I did it because I thought it was the best thing for our people, then I'm good.
That's it, man. I love it, bro.
I appreciate you, bro. It's so good to be with you, Doc.
Always, man. Always a nourishing conversation, bro. Keep doing your thing, man. I'm sure we'll catch up soon, all right?
No doubt.